Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Welcome to Islamic Economic Series. Today we will discuss about the allocation of resources in an Islamic economic system. So how resources are utilized are crucial to be decided in the economy, and the term allocation of resources shouldn't be confused with the term distribution of wealth and income, because here we are discussing about using the factors of production to produce goods and services, and from these goods and services we create income and wealth. The next chapter that is on the distribution of income and wealth, that's usually happen at the post-production level or after production level. So in this topic we will discuss about the mechanism of resource allocation in Islamic economics. You will understand later that Islamic economic systems prefers market to address the issue of resource allocation. As we have discussed before, there are some limitations in the market. We want to know what are the limitations, and then we also want to understand how market in Islamic economics is different than market in capitalism. In this topic also we will discuss about the difference between Islamic consumer behavior versus the conventional consumer behavior. That's on the demand side. Then we will also discuss about the difference between the Islamic producer behavior and the conventional producer behavior. That's on the supply side. Basically, those are the outline for this topic. Let's start. When it's come to the issue of resource allocation, economic starts with the issue of scarcity of the resources, and then decision needs to be made because we need to choose how to utilize the resources, and in that process there will be opportunity cost. Recall before we have discussed about the concept of scarcity in Islam. You can check my video on this topic. In the discussion about scarcity from an Islamic perspective, we divide the concept into relative and absolute scarcity. The issue of absolute scarcity to some economists is a real issue. For example, in this quotation, here we find some economists had started to worry about the issue of scarcity at the very beginning of the economic disciplines itself. In 1798, for example, Thomas Robert Malthus, he had come up with the following hypothesis. He argued that population tends to increase faster than food supply with inevitable disastrous results unless the increase in population is checked by moral restraints or by war, famine, and diseases. So this statement is very controversial because first, it believes in the idea of absolute scarcity. Worries about absolute scarcity led to Malthus to suggest some ways to address the issue, such as through moral restraints, war, famine, and diseases. It seems to suggest that in order for some people to survive, it is naturally acceptable for some others to die due to some of these causes that he mentioned, so that those who survive could enjoy the limited resources. So if you talk about GDP per capita, it's about taking the total amount of GDP divided by the number of population. Given this context, if we want to increase GDP per capita, assuming that GDP is constant, one way is to reduce the number of population. If you think about it, to have less people would be better in order to get higher GDP per capita. So the context of this hypothesis should be critically viewed by Islamic economists because, number one, whether we agree to say that resources are absolutely limited, that's one issue. Number two, whether we agree to say that it is acceptable for some people to die due to some natural causes as a way to free up more resources to those who survive. This is something that we need to think deeply in order to understand the philosophy behind scarcity of resources. This is the person that I have mentioned earlier, Thomas Robert Malthus, and the following are some brief biodata about Thomas Robert Malthus. He is famous in economic discipline because he contributes a lot on the study about demographic, and those who subscribe to this philosophy, they call themselves as Malthusian. Remember also that his famous hypothesis was published in 1798, and that's not far away from the publication of The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. Adam Smith's work was published in 1776. So what we have established so far is about the argument on how serious is the issue of scarcity to economists. Economists have different philosophical perspective on scarcity. Islamic economists, for example, argued that we can divide the concept into relative and absolute concepts. Today, there are also economists who say that let's put away scarcity, let's talk about abundance of resources. Now, given all these concerns, different economic systems have different ways to address the issue of resource allocation. As we have discussed previously, market is the best mechanism to allocate the resources. Capitalism mainly relies on market. Islamic economic system accepts market as the preferred way to allocate the resources, while socialism addresses the issue of resource allocation via the decision by the state or the government. So in this topic, we will concentrate in understanding how market in Islam operates in addressing the issue of resource allocation. So when we say market, that is the consumption side or the demand side, and the other side is the supply side or the production side. And throughout the discussion, we will focus more on the normative aspect of the market mechanism. To proceed, let's first understand what are some of the advantages of the market system. First, in a market system, the tendency of the system is to produce high level of outputs. Therefore, here we would find that many market economists would put a lot of emphasis on achieving high GDP growth, and since in the market system it involves intense level of competition, that would drive firms to improve their level of efficiency. And by efficiency, we can talk about productive and allocative efficiencies. At the same time, under a market system, there would be a variety of goods and services provided to the buyers, and these are some of the advantages of the market system. Through the forces of demand and supply, suppliers would get the signal in deciding what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, and when to produce. And by responding to the market signals, this would allow consumers to enjoy goods and services that they really want to have. However, there are some shortcomings of the market that we need to realize. First, market would only distribute income and wealth based on functional distribution only. Functional distribution is about rewards to the factors of production, where the factors are rewarded based on their roles or function in the economy, such as wages to labor, rent to land, interest to capital in a conventional context, and profit and loss sharing to the entrepreneurs. This is one big shortcoming of the market. As a consequence of this, the market system has created the problems of widening income gap in the economy. Second is the issue of market failure. There are many situations where we will have a case of market failure. Not having a perfectly competitive market also is a form of market failure, because ideally only under a perfectly competitive market we can achieve efficiency. Other forms of market structures, such as a monopoly, oligopoly, and a monopolistic competitive market, would result in market inefficiency. So in that respect, these are some form of market failure. Market failure also can be related to the issue of side effects from the economic activities, such as the issue of pollution. Externalities, especially negative externalities, are not welcome by many parties because of the negative effects. When we calculate the level of GDP, there is the byproduct of that GDP, such as the negative externalities, and that's not subtracted from the total amount of the GDP figure, because GDP only measures the amount of goods and services produced. However, in that production process, we are creating side effects, and these side effects are costs to us. These costs are not implicit in the process of that GDP production. Another shortcoming of the market mechanism is that market only produces goods and services that could provide potential returns or profit to the producers. In this context, market would neglect the production of public goods because most of public goods require huge amount of investment, and due to this high investment costs, the risk involved is high for the firms to invest in such production. Therefore, many firms would not invest in the production of public goods, such as public roads, the railroad, public hospital, and public schools. Here we find that market is only inclined to produce something that can give positive returns to the investors or to the firms. Another big issue related to market shortcoming is the issue of present and future allocation of the resources. Market mainly responds to present generations' demand and supply because we have the effective demand and supply at the moment. As a consequence of this, whatever we are producing at the moment is based on the current signals from the market. The future generation have no representative at the moment in the market. If the present generation is not careful about how we utilize the resources, we may overexploit the resources for our own needs, and as a result of that, the future generation will have to deal with serious issue of limited resources to fulfill their needs and wants. The last point here is that market is subject to fluctuations of the business cycle. The boom and bust of the market or the economy, such as shown in this table, means that the business cycle will disrupt the process of production in the economy. And when there is a recession in the economy, we are not utilizing the available resources at the potential level of the GDP. Firms are shutting down. Recession also creates the issue of poverty. And the big question here is how we can ensure sustainable economic growth in the economy so that we are not pushing the economic engine too hard, and at the same time, we are also producing our goods and services at a more sustainable level to the environment and to our socio-economic development. So we have seen so far the advantages and the disadvantages of the market system. We learned earlier that the Islamic economic system prefers market as the mechanism to allocate the resources. Another big question here is how the market mechanism in Islam is different than the market mechanism in a capitalist system. There are two quick answers to that question. The first one is the demand and supply in the Islamic economic system is based on the Islamic rules of the game. We will elaborate this further later. And second, the economic agents in the Islamic economic system behave according to the behavior of an Islamic man. Who is Islamic man? I have another video on the concept of Islamic man. I hope you will check that video. At the moment, if someone asks you how market in Islam differs than market in capitalism, these two are the quick answers to that questions. We will discuss the details of these 2 points, inshallah, in the next video. I think that's all this time. Thank you very much. Wassalam.